Hi, Draymond. Welcome back.
Thank you. I appreciate it. How y'all doing? What's up, Kara?
Hey. When your teammates and coaches talked about your suspension, most of them were talking about how they wanted to see you get right as a person, worry about the player later. All of them are really invested in making sure you connected to whatever help you needed. How would you describe the type of help you've accepted to be a better person?
I think it's just about, number one, knowing what it is. Yeah, I think so many people throw around the word help, but what actually does that mean? And so I think for me, number one was just sitting down with myself and figuring out what that means. When you talk therapy and all these things, therapy only go as far as you take it. When you sit in a therapy session, therapists probably talk 10, 15% of the time, and you talk the other 85 or 90. So then what are you talking about? And I think for me, and knowing that and understanding that and then going into the process, it's first important to identify what exactly that is. And I think so many people can have their thoughts on what that means. But again, if it's not something that you're up to, if it's not something that you believe, then you're wasting your time. I think one of the best things that happened to me during the process, as soon as I got on the phone, for a first initial, he's like, "So what's this about?" I see all the things in the news. I see all, everything's everyone's saying. How do you feel, and what are you thinking? Because again, if you're here just to satisfy some obligation or satisfy some public opinion, you're wasting my time and yours. And that was the most important thing for me that I could hear, because that wasn't why I was there, and yet, one would think so. And so I think, that was a very important part of me starting what has been the last 4 weeks or so for me.
What's up, Draymond?
What?
How much basketball were you able to play or not play, I guess?
I took some time away from everything. Like, I don't think I touched the ball for the first 10 days because it was the least important thing to me. I needed a break just from everything. And one of the best things in the world for me was not waking up the next day like, all right, I got to go get this workout in. I got to go get a lift in. I got to go do this. It was wonderful waking up. Like, nope, I have an 8-month-old. I have a 3-year-old, 7-year-old, a 9-year-old. It was wonderful waking up to them and being home when they wake up and indulging in that process. And so I didn't touch a basketball for the first 10 days. And then, I started working again. Then it felt good to get back in the gym. After I've sat with some of my thoughts, and I think in going back after 10 days, it was refreshing to go get a workout in. It wasn't, but it didn't feel like a routine. It didn't feel like I was jumping right back into the revolving door, if you will, and just start back spinning. It was like, nope, I'm going to go here today, and I'm going to get some shots up. I'm going to go here today, and I just really want to get my body moving and get a sweat. It wasn't some routine or with some goal of getting back to the court. It was simply just, nope, this is what I feel like I should go do today, or this is what I want to go do today. And like I said, that was therapeutic in itself. You never realize how stressful this job is until you no longer have that stress. And then it's like, whoa. And I think for me, I was going through my weeks, and I was on one of my calls with the league, with the PA and Rich, and Rick and Mike. And then they start talking about like, all right, a return date. And my body was like, like it just immediately tensed up. And I was like, whoa, that was interesting to me, because it also further confirmed for me what I had already been thinking about the time that I had off and just sitting away from everything and like how relaxed I was with everything. And to just hear the word return to play and like tense up immediately, it was just kind of a reminder, of like, okay, you're going to start discussing the return now. That's great. But you can't fall right back into just like the tense place. And I think that was such a great moment for me to have, because the last thing I would want is to come back and have that moment when I'm going on the court, And so to have that moment, the first time I heard the word return, I thought was also a step for me in the right direction, because, wow, you're able to process that right away, like as opposed to living through it. And then it's like figuring it out after the fact,
All that being said, you are returning to a 17 and 19 team that pretty clearly needs you. How close do you feel, and how urgent does this situation feel from just a professional?
It's urgent from a professional standpoint because I wasn't hurt. At least my body wasn't hurt. My mind was hurt. My feelings was hurt. But it wasn't like some injury cost me off the floor. So it's very urgent because I've cost my team enough. I've cost this organization enough. And so it's not a time for me to just come back and be like, all right, I'm going to take my time and get back when I can. No, like, you caused this yourself. And so you don't get the grace. And although I'm very appreciative of our organization, number one, for the support, but number two, like, they're putting the plan together to ramp up. If it was up to me, I would love to come back and play right now. Reality is it's probably not the best thing for me or the best thing from an organizational standpoint and what that looks like moving forward and the risk of injury and all those things. But, there's a human component of this as well. And, you sit home and you watch these games, and as a competitor, you want to help. And so, and then returning, it's funny. Coach said, welcome back, in film yesterday, and BP started clapping, and everybody started clapping. I'm like, well, I'm not sure I deserve a round of applause. But I'll take it. But, it's like in that, like, half joking, but like, you don't just get grace and I'll take my time and get back when I can. Like, I'm coming back from a suspension, not an injury. And so there's a huge sense of urgency, and I pushed it like crazy today, and I'm going to push it like crazy every day until I can get back on the floor. Because, number one, I think it's also important for these guys to know and understand that, I'm not approaching this like I'm going to just take my time and get back when I can. I'm going to do all that I can to meet the requirements that I have to meet with our performance group in order to get back on the court, and I'm trying to do that as fast as I can. Whatever work that requires, that's what I'm doing.
Very much. Hi. Nice to see you.
It's good to see you as well.
Thanks. Do you believe you've acquired some skills with the work you've been doing to handle yourself when emotions run sky high and it's a tense moment on the court, so that you don't cross a line or whatever the referees think is crossing a line, whatever it is? How do you control those emotions the next time? And are you finding some ways and some techniques to do so?
I think number one is about, first off, understanding your emotions, understanding those moments. My goal is not to come back and worry about crossing the line, because I still have to come back and play the game the way I know how to play the game and be the best me that I can be for my team to help give my team a chance to win. I think, as far as not crossing the line with a referee, Yes, that's a big point of emphasis for me, and knowing and understanding where that line is. But I didn't make it to this point worried about touching the line. I didn't help this team and this organization become what we've become by worried about crossing the line. And so, throughout my time away, you kind of go through work through all these thoughts, right? And, if you would have talked to me 2.5 weeks ago, I'm like, I'm not crossing the line, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that. And but as you continue to do work and put the work in, and as time go by, for me, it's about developing a practice, developing a routine. And I think one of the best things about that is it hasn't been just on me to develop that. I've had support from this organization, support from the league in developing what those things look like. And that's what I plan to do. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, yes, I know everything, because you don't know what you do until you're in a moment, But I think going into anything, you can only best prepare yourself for what moments you may face. And then you'll be put to the test. And I'm not, my goal isn't to try to say, oh, man, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, and this is how it's going to look. You don't know that until I'll be sitting here lying to you. If I said this is how it's going to look and this is the process, that's not real. But what is real is preparing yourself and doing a lot of self-work so that when you are in these moments, you know where you can turn to. It's just like anything else. If I catch the ball on the wing, in that moment, I've prepared myself to shoot that ball, right? It's no different. You do the work. And then when those moments present themselves, you lean on your preparation.
What's up, Draymond?
What up?
You said in the past and even in recent weeks that a certain mindset has gotten you to this point since you were 15 and Saginaw has gotten you from when you were in the second round pick. What's the journey been like knowing that that's been your mindset and then finding out that's not sustainable at this point in your life and then trying to figure out another way in real time?
I don't think it's not sustainable. You don't make it to this point if it wasn't sustainable. But let's face it, antics isn't something that got me here. And so when I look back on these situations, it's can you remove the antics? I'm very confident I can remove the antics. And I'm very confident if I do remove the antics, no one's worried about how I play the game of basketball. Nobody's worried about how I carry myself in the game of basketball, but it's the antics. And so that's my focus. It's not on changing who I am completely. You don't change the spots on a leopard. It's just not going to happen, and I'm not going to try to set some unrealistic expectation of who's this person going to be. It's not real, and that's not sustainable. I've always said before, I know how to be me a lot better than I can be anyone else. But in saying that, can I accept the fact that my antics has been over the top? Of course. Can I remove those? Am I capable of removing those? Of course. And I think without that, then I don't think there's much of an issue. But it's the antics that can go. And I've made a commitment to do things to make sure that those don't creep in.
Speaking of those antics, throughout those times, the front office, Steve Kerr, they've all stuck by you, right? Publicly, and even privately, Steph as well. What is in a way that maybe other organizations maybe haven't stood by other players? What do you think that says about your relationship with this team and this front office and this organization?
I think number one, as I said before in my podcast, they know me. They know me, the person. not just the basketball player. And their support is not something that I take for granted, and I think I've had my shortcomings and my failures and where I've fallen extremely short of upholding my end of the bargain. But I am also a firm believer in reciprocity. And I think to Steph, to them, whoever's coach, front office, this organization, I give my all to, as a person, as a basketball player, in these personal relationships. I think I reciprocate that. Now, I've had issues that I can admit haven't been the best, and they've had to stick with me through. And I'm very appreciative of that. I don't take that for granted one bit. But I can only show that appreciation through my play and through as I continue to move forward and show the growth that I've experienced over the last few weeks, which is just the beginning. Like I said, I'm not going to come up here and be like, oh, man, it's been 3.5 weeks, or like, here we go. Like, that's not real. But, I think what I know over these 3.5 weeks, I have grown some and started a path to further grow and dedicated myself to that path. And so ultimately, you just want the opportunity to show them that. And I think that's the best way I can sit here and say thank you 1,000,000 times till I'm blue in the face. Or in which, I do thank them. But ultimately, what shows that appreciation is my growth moving forward, and that's what I plan on doing.
Draymond.
Hey, Kendra.
Go ahead.
Oh, thanks. Sorry. No, I lost my train of thought. We've had a couple of these, press conferences with you, either right after an incident or after your time away, and you're always clear of like when you want to apologize and when you don't want to apologize. So after the league decides, hey, it's an indefinite suspension and it's not a normal like clear-cut suspension. I mean, how was it to buy in to that indefinite suspension and the steps that you did have to take? You're just talking about, therapy and really self-reflection. Was that an easy thing for you to open yourself up to, or did it take some time?
I think it was a very easy thing for me to open myself up to from a personal standpoint. Because, like I said, I needed the time. I needed to regather myself, to recenter myself, to recalibrate, to take a step back. It's hard to see things when you're just in it, and you're like every day you're in this thing. It's hard to sometimes see what's necessary to see. And so from that standpoint, it was very easy to accept. Fortunately and unfortunately, I play a team sport. And so when you look at what that does to the team, that's a very tough thing to accept, because ultimately you're letting so many people down. Like, by the way, it's not just my teammates. Like, there's a lot of people, jobs, riding on the success that we have as players. And so most of those people, all of those people don't make the money we make. And so it's even more dire, right? And so I think for me to let all of those people down, obviously my teammates, like, that goes without saying, my coaching staff, but it goes so far beyond that. Like, the reality is, if Steve was fired today, he'll be fine. Like, if I was cut today or something, I'll be fine. But, like, that's not the case for all the people that pour into us so that you can then see that product on the floor at 7 p.m. on given night, on Wednesday night. 5:30. Oh, not this Wednesday. But yeah, so, there's so many people, livelihoods riding on that. And I know I am a key to that success. So when you sit back, it's like, all right, yeah, you do need the time, but like don't lose sight of the people you're screwing along the way, you know? And so I think, you know, accepting what the league handed down was the easy part, you know, from a personal standpoint. But from a team standpoint, from an organizational standpoint, I care about people. And so just to know the people I'm screwing along the way, that part sucks. And by the way, that feeling didn't go away. Like, that's currently still here. Like, and so the only way that I can be better and make that right is to be better moving forward.
Did you have those thoughts, though? Because, I mean, just maybe 3 weeks before this suspension, you were suspended for 5 games. Like, was there a similar thought process of, like, I'm screwing over all these people for that? Or was it because the league was like, hey, we need you really to have that time to have dedicated reflection?
No, I didn't quite have those thoughts during the 5-game suspension. And I also don't think it was because the league was like, hey, you need time to reflect, because I think, you know, it's not necessarily a time thing, but when it is indefinite, you don't know what that means either, you know, and so that could be like, who knows what, it's indefinite. And so, but like I said before, I think having the time allows you to process those thoughts. And I'm also appreciative to the league for the indefinite suspension. You know why? Because it was no goal to return. You know, it was no, all right, I'm going to work and get through these 5 games, so as soon as the 5 games is up, I'm back. Like, you know, a part of the indefinite and returning was being in a better space. And so to allow my mind to process what it looks like in getting in a better space, I think you're able to then sit with those thoughts. But to, like, sit for 5 games, I'm targeting the return date. There was no target until 2 days before it was announced to you all that the ban would be lifted. There was no target the entire time. And I think when there is no target like that, it allowed me to process all these things. It allowed me to not have the stress and the plan of working towards a return, you know. It allowed me to come to some realizations that I needed and wanted to come to. And so I think that's more so that for me than anything.
Hey, Draymond. Okay. Hey, Draymond.
Hey.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Your transparency throughout this entire process has been unprecedented. We've not really seen this from any athlete. And in all the things that you've said, you could look at your message and say it could be to the youth in Saginaw. It could be to your son one day. It could be to the fans. It could be to your team. When you look at the way that you've allowed us to get the peek behind the curtain, as you've mentioned, what's inspiring that? What relationships are you thinking about when you allow us into this process for you?
I think several. Number one is my family, my friends, those close to me. You know, going through this, like, you realize how many people was affected, like, just through the whole process, you know, and so I think that's a big deal. I have children, you know, and you want to make sure they see the right thing. And because parenting is all built and based on trial and error, some mixture of what my parents showed me that I thought was great and what I didn't necessarily think was so great, I'm going to try to do this, right? Like, there's no guide, there's no handbook. I mean, maybe there are some handbooks out there, but I ain't ever read one. Because even if it taught me something about my 9-year-old, my 3-year-old is totally different. So, in understanding that there's no guide, there's no handbook, I also understand that they've been made, or yeah, I mean, they've been put in a position to have to deal with some things as well. And so if you put someone in a position to have to deal with things, and it's not just my kids, but as far as my kids do go, if you've let them see you F up, then you got to let them see you make it right. You got to let them see your growth. You got to let them see you take ownership. Can't just run and hide. And although throughout my time I wanted to run and hide, as I told you, I considered retiring. Like, that's running and hiding. Regardless of what drive those feelings, that would be in that situation running and hiding, because guess what? You're not really leaving on your terms. You're running from something. And so I think, and then, you start talking about youth and not youth, adults. Like, adults struggle with accountability. I know I do sometimes. Maybe y'all don't, but I definitely struggle with accountability sometimes. And I've never been a me guy. Like, it's not all about me. And so in a situation like this, can I help someone else grow? If I help one person grow, incredible. Like, great. Because that leads us all to a better place. If I can help one person grow from my shortcomings, from my failures, you want people to love when you're doing something great, right? Like, you want people to go crazy when you're doing something great, and you want to feel that love. Well, like, don't run from it when it ain't so great. Don't. And so I think my goal is that a lot of people can learn from it. And yet my goal is, most importantly, is to grow. And I think if I can show growth in the position, like, there's a responsibility that comes with the positions that we're in. And, I've always been one to say, like, that's your business. Like, it ain't really my business. But the reality is, it's like, there is a responsibility. And to whom much is given, much is required. And so I think allowing the world to see that there's growth out there for everyone. And your growth may not be the growth that I need, but it's all relative. And so, and sliding the curtain back and let everybody take a peek. I let everybody take a peek when it wasn't right. It's on full display in front of the world. So don't try to hide now. Like, there's a stage for you to allow people to see growth. And because I'm so dedicated to growing, I don't mind you taking a peek. Because I know ultimately what I want the result to be in the end. And I'll probably mess up along the way. And that's all a part of growing. Like, it's no linear path to growing. If you find a straight line to anything, come holler at me as fast as it tear back down. It's just, that's just not the reality. And so I've always been quite of an open book. Why start running and hide now?
Draymond, hey Draymond.
Hey.
You said I've cost my team enough. You've played with Steph your whole career, one of the greatest players the NBA has ever seen. How concerned are you that you may have cost him some of these moments of his prime?
I don't necessarily look at it as costing him some moments of his prime, because we're all in this together, right? Like, one of us fell, we're all failing. It's a team sport. I think for me personally, I care more about the person. Like, how am I affecting the person? I can care less about a prime, if I'm honest, because I don't see his prime coming to an end no time soon. But, like, how are you affecting the person that care about you? I spoke about the Stephen A. incident on my podcast. Like, then that's something he got to live with, you know? Forcing him to carry more weight than he necessarily would have to carry. What effect does that have on him? Even more so from a basketball standpoint. Like, it matters more to me how I affect the person. Now, as far as this team goes, like, definitely affected this team in a negative way. But it's not. It can be repaired. Like, we're still, 36 games into an 82-game season? There's a chance to make it right, and that's my goal, and that's my focus. And I think in doing that, you know, it helps Steph, it helps all of us. But, you know, I don't necessarily look at it from a daily basis of like, I affected his prime. No, I affected the person. And like the person, that includes the prime, that includes all this thing, but to single out one part, I actually think is selfish of me. To be like, I'm affecting him this way. No, like, how are you affecting his mind also? Like, how are you affecting how he show up to work and what that looks like on a daily basis? Like, there's so much more to this game because we're actual human beings playing this game. Like, and I think that gets lost. That gets lost so often. Of like, nah, like, that's a real person that's dealing with these things, and these things can be heavy. And so I more so worry about how I affected the person. You know, maybe I'm wrong for looking at it that way and not thinking about it from how I affected this prime, but I still worry more about how I'm affecting the overall person and than just one specific thing.
Welcome back, sir.
Thank you.
Just two-part thing. First of all, to be clear, you do not have a return date as of yet.
No, not yet, but I'm pushing to make that as soon as possible. As soon as I get to go, I know our performance staff have put a plan together. As soon as I get to go, I'll be ready to go. But like that goal is also Coach Kerr. Like, you know, like I said before, you don't just get to walk back in like when you want to walk in. Like, that goal is also Steph. You know, like, that goal is the guys in the locker room. Like, you know, like, the league was one thing, but, like, it's so much bigger than that. Like, I owe a lot to these guys, and so the goal is also on them. You know, it's not just up to me. I don't necessarily view it that way. When I get to go from our staff, our performance staff, our coaching staff, our guys, like, that's all a part of it. It's not just on me. And where's your conditioning level? Like, I think I'm in pretty good condition, but it's so much more than that. You know, like, reintegrating yourself into the team. I didn't see these guys for the whole time, and that was very intentional. But like, that's all a part of it.
And lastly, what did you miss the most during your time away, and what did it feel like driving up to the arena, walking in, coming back to work?
What you miss the most is, you know, I sit and I watch our games. And what you miss the most is just being able to be there for the guys. Like, man, it's hard to win NBA games. And I think, you know, we've had times where we've made it look easy. It's hard, like, as hell, to win an NBA game. So when you see guys struggling, you just want to help. But in the same breath, I wasn't sitting there like, I need to get back. I can change this. That was the whole point of, like, not being here. I didn't think guys needed to hear my voice. Like, but yet, if I see something, I'm going to try to help. And I just thought that was wrong. Like, especially with no return date, just to be around the guys and, like, working out and, like, open-endedly practicing and work. Like, I just didn't think that was right. I didn't think it was right for, for them to even have the uncertainty. You know, it's almost like you out of sight, you out of mind. And it don't quite always happen that way in our sport because it's a win or lose sport. And so when the wins are piling up, everybody's great. When you're losing, everything feels like it's falling apart because that's what it's all based off of. And so I just didn't think that they should be susceptible to more than I had already kind of made them have to face. And seeing me every day was one of those things. And so I would just say being with the guys, like the camaraderie. It's unfortunate that we haven't had the season that we've all thought we would be having up until this point because it's a great group of guys that really enjoy being around each other. And that hasn't always been the case. And so I think I missed that more than anything. But I wasn't just, like, missing playing because playing wasn't on my mind. Like, if playing was on my mind, then I think I would have been doing myself a disservice and everyone else around me a disservice. So that wasn't really my focus. My focus was my path, my growth, the things that I want to do, my family, and making sure that whenever that day came, if it did come, that I returned to this team, that I was in a better space and able to provide for them what I need to provide. And I think I'm in a great space, but just being able to help the guys. No problem.